Right now, Pittsburgh's best sports show is about to begin. Call us or tweet us. We've got things to talk about on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome inside the Fan Cave. This is the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. Bob Pompeani with you at 412-575-2600, joined by Andrew Filipponi up at 93.7 The Fan. And I believe we're on 93.7 The Fan tonight. Is that correct, Andrew, or is the football game
It is,
on?
Bob.
Okay.
No, because we had Pitt and Radford, so we're on there, and I just want to excuse and apologize. I have a tickle in my throat, so I do have a lozenge in.
Just
for
like
this,
me. Did I give that
tonight.
to you last night? I've been doing the same thing for the last week.
Yeah.
So it's that little tickle. I don't know.
So
what
I'm not eating leftover Halloween candy. There's a lozenge in for this one.
This is a very transparent show. We will tell you what's going on, even if sometimes it's not what you should hear. Anyway, call us at 412-575-2600. That's the number. It's a pretty good football game going on. Get to that in a second. But first, I want to talk about heading into this week now. The Commanders come up for the Steelers. The trade deadline is tomorrow. Yes, I know it's election day, but it's also the trade deadline day, and it's the day that the college football playoff reveals its rankings, which will impact where these teams are, and we'll get to that in a second. But what do you think the Steelers will do, if anything? And will it be just a wide receiver, or is there another area that you think they should address?
I think their corner depth could use a boost even with Cam Sutton coming back, although that is helpful. You know, if somebody were to become available for a future 6th or 7th round pick, I'd kick the tires on that. I think offensive tackle, you're an injury away from being on hard times there. We saw Calvin Anderson go in for Dan Moore, and he gave up a sack right away. Broderick Jones has really struggled this season, so that would be a place to load up and get an extra body too if possible. But the big one is wide receiver, Bob, and, you know, they really should have gone after DeAndre Hopkins. Let's call it what it is here. There were guys out there that were too expensive, big contracts. Didn't want to do that if you were the Steelers, or guys that wanted to play with their old friends like Devontae Adams with Aaron Rodgers in New York. But Hopkins was available for a 5th-round pick, and he's got his fingerprints all over this Chiefs game tonight, and he's a guy that's a borderline Hall of Fame player. So to me, that was a missed opportunity. If when it's all said and done, they don't upgrade that room, I'm going to look back on that move and say that's one the Steelers should have made.
Especially if somebody gets injured. It's not a deep group to begin with. If for no other reason they need a body in there, even if it's somebody who comes for a 7th or 6th round pick. But you're right, 5th round for Hopkins, and Hopkins has a touchdown reception.
But the
tonight,
6th round pick is an issue.
Yeah, because
the 6th round pick is a problem.
I know that.
They don't have it.
Well, maybe
they don't have it.
A
So
5th or a 7th then. Whatever. They'll get somebody. I got to believe they're going to get somebody here just to add to the group. And I also think defensive line's an issue. They could probably use one more player. Not sure how they go about doing it, but tomorrow at 4 p.m. is the deadline. So far, after what you've seen, we're halfway through the season essentially. I think Detroit has been the most impressive team that I have watched. What is your most impressive team through this part of the season?
Overall in the NFL, you're asking me?
Mm-hmm. Overall.
How do you not say Detroit? Even with Kansas City's record, their offense has sputtered and been mediocre for most of the year, and Mahomes has thrown a lot of interceptions, and they've had a lot of injuries. They've not been their dynamic self. The Lions have shown now that they don't have to just win by scoring 40 points per game, which they can do, but their defense, even without Aiden Hutchinson, what they were able to accomplish in Green Bay on Sunday. So they're 7-1 for the first time since 1956. They kept their coaches. They didn't lose anybody to a head coaching gig elsewhere. They're on a mission after what happened in the NFC Championship game. So I would agree with you, but I don't think the Steelers are that far off. I think that there is still room for growth with Russell Wilson. And even though this defense is second in scoring defense, I think at times it has not lived up to expectations. So I think that unit can get better in the second half of the year, and they'll need to because the schedule is what it is, Bob, the toughest in the league.
Yeah, and they start with Washington on Sunday. That's a 7-2 football team. Interesting because they have 2 games in basically 4 days, 5 days. The very next game is a game in division against Philadelphia, which is 6-2 and on their heels. So this will be a big stretch for Jaden Daniels and the Washington Commanders. We're going to talk about that, Pitt, Penn State, whatever you want to talk about, call us at 412-575-2600. That is the number tonight. as we greet you here on KDKA Plus and 93.7 The Fan. It's the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. Phone lines are open. Call now. Our GMC Sierra tweeted tonight is from the 33rd team. Quarterbacks with a better passer rating than Jaden Daniels in their first 9 games since 2000. Only Patrick Mahomes and Brock Purdy, and that is the list, which brings us to that topic. It's an offense, Andrew, that doesn't just pass the ball efficiently. He's one of the best completion percentage numbers in the NFL, and this is rookie season, but they also have 15 rushing touchdowns. And they do it with a variety of people. You know about Terry McLaurin, but aside from him, there aren't that many big names on that team.
Now, they got Noah Brown, who's played pretty well there, caught that Hail Mary pass, another guy the Steelers could have had for a song when he was cut by the Texans at the end of the preseason. We saw him here against the Steelers. You did that game, Bob. A guy they could have picked up, they didn't. And that's another reason why they're in this quagmire that they are at wide receiver. This is going to be a big test because Mike Tomlin historically beats rookie quarterbacks. He's beaten them more than any coach in NFL history. He beat Bo Nix in week 2 and made him look bad. Very few teams, if any, have made Jaden Daniels look like a first-year quarterback. And it is on the road, even though I anticipate a lot of Steelers fans being in there for this one. And they're an underdog, Bob. And Mike Tomlin will use that all week as motivation. Look, we've got this great record, but they still don't believe in us. They're picking us to go here and lose the game.
Well, the one thing going for the Steelers is that they pass the ball down the field. Washington, that's one of its weak spots, covering guys down the field. So Russell Wilson may have to take some shots down there. We'll see how that goes. And right now we're going to go to our number 1 Cochran Go One Better caller of the night, and that would be Jim in Hampton Township. Hello, Jim. What's up?
Hey, Bob. Quick question. I watch your show every night with you and Pony. I love the show. Quick question. Just wondered, the last 9 games for the Steelers season, what do you think? It's a tough schedule. I'm thinking 3-6 or 4-5. Just wondering what your thoughts were. Thanks.
Well, I wouldn't be that negative about it, although it could happen. I mean, they got all 6 division games left. I would imagine the 2 with the Browns are going to be tougher than people think, Andrew, but still, I would say I'd take right now 5-4 minimum. Could be better. What are your thoughts on this? Because at the end of the stretch there, you've got 3 games in a row that are going to be very difficult, including the Eagles, the Ravens, and the Chiefs.
I think they're going to win 5 more games. I think they're going to split with the Ravens. I think they'll sweep Cleveland, and actually I'm going to say they're going to split with Cincinnati too. So I'm going to give them, man, maybe 4-5 is right. Because they're going to be an underdog on Sunday. They're going to be an underdog against the Chiefs. They're going to be an underdog against the Eagles. I guess I agree with the last caller. 4-5 seems appropriate given the difficulty of the schedule, and that would get you to 10-7, which would get you in the playoffs. But I doubt it would get you the AFC North. I guess I don't think they're going to win the AFC North. Now that I think about it, Bob, I think they'll make the playoffs, but the schedule is just too daunting from here on out for them.
But they also went 5-1 against that division last year, which many people didn't think was possible. You know, the Cleveland games are going to be tougher than I think people think.
But they didn't play Joe Burrow one time.
No, I know that.
They played Jake Browning twice. We got to put that caveat on it.
They've played some bad quarterbacks this year too, and they've taken advantage of it. That's good for them. But I'm saying at this point those Thursday night in Cleveland will not be easy. I don't care what the odds makers say. Just like I thought tonight, 9 points with Tampa was too much. I would have taken those points in a heartbeat. But yeah, maybe he's right about that. 4-5, 5-4, maybe not much better. I think a key is this week. If they can win this game this week, that'll get them going in the second half of the season, and they're getting healthy at the right time anyway. Let's go to Michael in Beaver Falls. Michael, how are you doing?
Hey, Bob. I'm glad to see that you. Glad to hear your voice is better.
Well, mine's getting there maybe, but Andrew's is starting to go on the decline.
Oh, hi, Andrew. I hope you're feeling better too, boss.
Thank you.
I still feel. You're welcome. I still feel the Steelers are going to win the next one, no problem. But I like to predict the games one game at a time because stuff happens every week. You never know, guys. But anyway, Steelers.
All you have to do is look at every one of these NFL teams. Like Tampa, even without 3 of their top players on offense, you know, last check, we're beating Kansas City. And Kansas City's had its issues. The one thing they haven't had an issue is with their defense. They can play some defense. And if Mahomes and offense get together, I thought Worthy made a bad play along the sidelines tonight, was not aware where the out-of-bounds play was. That would have been an easy touchdown.
Yeah, And they definitely miss Rashee Rice. Mm-hmm. They miss Isaiah Pacheco, too. I think Kareem Hunt's been okay, but Pacheco gives them, I think, a whole other dimension as well. So that's the thing with the Chiefs, is that they're 7-0, and I feel like they haven't even come close to playing up to their potential this year, which is actually a scary thing to think about if they're able to ever put it all together there. And even though Baltimore held Denver at only 10 points on Sunday, I still think they have big defensive problems, and they should be out in the market for a pass rusher in a corner tomorrow. I think they need to fill one of those holes if they're really going to be a Super Bowl contender. They can score a lot of points, and their rushing attack is amazing, but they don't stop a lot of teams, Bob. And at some point when you're playing quality quarterbacks and big offenses every week, I think that's going to come back to haunt you. Well,
DeAndre Hopkins has scored his second touchdown of the game, and Kansas City now has moved ahead 24-17. Oh. So that's going to make you happy, Andrew. Hopkins is hopping in off the bat. 2 weeks into this, he looks like he's been there for several years.
Well, I don't understand, and it didn't seem like the Steelers were all that interested in him, and I don't really get it. You know, he's somebody that when he's covered, he's still open because he's got such great hands. We saw a play in this game where there were two guys who had him sandwiched down the field, and he made a great catch. And the guy's got a tremendous body of work. I would think that a long resume like that would have been attractive to Mike Tomlin and the Steelers, but apparently they had their sights set on Christian Kirk, who I think has always been overpaid, as a matter of fact, and a good player, not a really great one like Hopkins. And he's done for the year, Bob. Schefter said that was almost a done deal between the Steelers and Jags.
I wonder what the compensation would have been for that. Who knows? But that we'll never find out because it's not going to happen. Let's go to Nancy in Tarentum. Hey, Nancy, welcome to the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call.
Hi, Bob. Hi, Andrew.
Hey there.
How you doing? Hey, Najee Harris. Wow, he's really come back. I think he's doing a great job.
He is. He's one of the reasons why their play action has worked well. He's also motivated because he knows every time he has one of these kinds of games, his value will go up. We were talking about this today, Joe and I today, Andrew, about whether or not the Steelers would be inclined to give him a new contract, and if so, what would that look like? And I would say yes, as long as the numbers made sense for both sides, and I don't think you have to go much above $8 million a year because that's what Derrick Henry is getting.
Oh, for Najee. I'm sorry, I couldn't hear the call there. Yeah. I think that's about right. I said on the showdown with you Sunday night that if I had to make a decision right now, or make a guess, I should say, in what the Steelers would do, I would predict that they do get an extension done with him, where it's something like 3 years, $24 million, and maybe like 15 of that is guaranteed, somewhere in that ballpark. And I think that would probably get it done, unless Najee feels like he's really put off by the fifth-year option not being picked up and wants to go into free agency and see what happens there. But Omar Khan has talked all along how he'd like to continue business with Najee. He just didn't want to guarantee the money before him playing this year. He didn't want to risk him getting injured and then still having to pay him next season, Bob.
Yeah, and that made sense. That's a business decision they have to make, and they don't close the door on these things. All right, before we go here to break, I want to ask you about both Pitt and Penn State and their chances now of moving into still an opportunity in this playoff. Both of them have schedules that I think, especially Penn State, they can navigate through and win these games. And if they do you think they get a spot in a very competitive Big Ten where you may see 4 teams get in, or do you think because they lost to Ohio State and maybe one loss is going to hurt them, given some of these other conferences and some of the records you see there?
I think it all depends on how Indiana does. So I'm going to answer your question this way. I don't think Penn State is going to lose another game.
However, I think SMU may be looking at a team that could win the entire ACC. They look really good to me, and when they're healthy, I think they're one of those speed teams that could make you look bad. I know Miami is very good. Miami could have had a couple of losses. How many teams from the ACC?
I think 2 max.
No, and you're right. The Clemson loss was terrible for the conference at large. We're going to take a break, come back. James, and line 1, you'll be up next when we come back. Don't go away. You're watching the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. Ken Rice standing by on the eve of the election. Ken?
Yeah, Bob, busy night here. The campaign trail's converging in Pittsburgh. We'll show you what happened, plus how Pennsylvania officials are working to make the process at the polls as smooth as possible tomorrow. And when Ray Pellin's tracking rain later in the forecast, all coming up at 11, Bob. See you in a few.
All right, very good. Thank you very much, Ken. James on line 1. Make it quick, please, James. How are you?
All right, how you doing?
Good, thanks.
All right, my question is about the Pirates next year. I mean, I know this is football season, but I'm talking Pirates, and we have 3 of the top pitchers maybe coming back.
Right. All the more reason for them to spend money, and they won't, James. Until I see it, I'm not going to believe it. I mean, it's as simple as that. Real quick, we have a Joe Ortman on Twitter at KD He says this: James Franklin loses a big game. What's next in Happy Valley? Andrew, as far as I'm concerned, if they win these next 4 and get to a playoff and win a playoff, I think people will be happy with that. Do you think they should be happy with that?
Do I think that Penn State fans should be happy with just making it to the final
and
8
winning
in the college football playoff?
And winning, yes.
No, I don't. Maybe if this is something that happens, 3 times or 4 times every 10 years where they get to the 8, okay. But when that's the best thing you've got, I mean, given the amount of resources that are poured into that program, the NIL collective, they should be competing for national championships. And if the best thing you do is crack the quarterfinals, I don't think that that's good enough for Penn State.
Well, they fell from 3 to 6. Not that big of a drop considering it was a home loss to Ohio State, but it was a game they could have won and probably should have won. We'll talk more about that tomorrow. Andrew, thanks as always. Appreciate it, and good luck with your voice as I continue to make sure mine's better. And it is today, but thank you for asking. We'll see you again tomorrow night, 10:35, right here on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. Good night.